Welcome to video lecture session 25 on programming concepts using C. Myself, Dr. Shubha S., Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, Government First Grade College, Malleshwaram, Bangalore, would like to present the video session. Learning objectives. So in this video lecture, you learn to know about the definition of arrays, how to define and declare an array, different ways of initializing an array, some important properties of an array, advantages and disadvantages of arrays with few examples. Prerequisites. In the previous video session, you have got familiarized with the concepts of variables, decision making, statements, and looping statements. Session outcome. So once you complete this session, you would have understood what is an array, the memory representation of an array, how to define and declare an array. Also, you would have learned some of the properties of the arrays and know some of the advantages and disadvantages of an array with few examples. Arrays. So an array is a collection of data items, all of the same type, and can be accessed using a common name. And it can also be defined as a structured data type consisting of elements that are of the same type and same name. That is, they can store fixed length of sequential collection of elements which are of the same type with same name. So an array is a variable that can store multiple values. Now, for example, if you want to store 100 integers, you can create an array as int num of 100. So here, num is an array which can store 100 numbers of the type integer. Defining and declaration of an array. Now, before using an array, we need to define and declare an array in the variable declaration section. To do that, we must specify the data type, the array name, and its size. Now, for example, to accept 15 examination marks, we define as int marks of 15, and to accept 20 students' height, we define it as float height of 20, and similarly, to accept a person name, we define as char name of 15. Now here, it is important to note that the size and type of an array cannot be changed once it is declared. General form of array declaration. Now in this example, ARR is an array of the type int and size 6. Means array ARR can store maximum of 6 elements of the type integer. Always, the index of an array will start from 0. And the first element of an array, ARR, that is ARR of 0, will be stored in the location 1001 in the memory. Memory representation of an array. So now here, let us consider as an example int x of 8, which means that x is an array of size 8 and of the type integer, which means the operating system will automatically reserve 8 into 2, which is equal to 16 bytes of continuous memory locations while execution. And suppose if it was a float, then it would have reserved 8 into 4, which is equal to 32 bytes. If the diagram, in the diagram, we see that x of 2 is equal to 20, which means the value 20 will be stored in the third location in the list, as the array index will always start from 0. Initializing an array. So arrays can also be initialized like any other variables. Now in arrays, there are two different ways of initialization. In the first method, we specify the array size and its initial values like as you see in method 1. But in method 2, we have not specified the size. Even then, the compiler will understand the size as 10, as we have enclosed 10 elements in the list. So the diagram here shows the memory representation of an array, and this representation can be shown either horizontally or vertically. So to initialize an array, we need to place the initialization data in the curly brackets following the equal sign. Also, an array can be partially initialized by providing few data items, and later on it can take the values during execution, but before assigning the values, it will be initialized as 0. Accessing elements which are out of its bound. Now suppose we have declared an array n as int n of 10, but you are trying to access the 12th element. In that case, you may get an error, and sometimes it may provide some unexpected output. And so we must not try to access elements of an array which is outside its bound. Some important properties of an array. So here, let us know some of the important properties of an array. Now, in an array declaration, all the elements of an array will be of the same type. Each element in an array will be referred by specifying the array name followed by the subscript. Always, the subscript values should be a positive integer value, and it cannot be a negative or a float value because it represents the position of an element in the list. Now the array elements are stored sequentially or continuously in the memory, and the number of subscripts determines the dimension of an array. Advantages of an array. The most important advantage of using array is that the complexity of the program reduces a lot. Now for this, you can see the example 1, where we have 10 variables n1, n2, n3, n4, n5, n6, n7, n8, n9, and n10 of the type integer. And suppose we need to read those 10 values, we need to write the scanf statement as shown in example 1. But by using arrays, we can reduce the complexity as we can see in example 2. And so arrays have the capability of storing many elements at the same time and can access any element in an array using the index value. Disadvantages of an array. Now, arrays are static in nature, which means the size of an array has to be specified in the beginning itself. That is, the size cannot be increased or decreased during the execution. Also, there is a chances of wastage of memory space because if we have defined the maximum size of an array as 100 but have read only 20 values, then the remaining 80 spaces of the locations are left blank, which actually causes wastage of memory space. And also, deletion and insertion of an element is not easy as we need to traverse the entire list of array. Example, now let us consider an example where the program to find the average of n numbers using arrays. Now, as we can see in the program, we have defined an array called marks of the size 100, which means maximum it can take 100 integer numbers. Also, we have other variables I, n, and sum. Here, sum is initialized as 0. And we have average, which is of the type float. So when we run the program, it asks the user to enter the number of marks in the list. Now suppose the user enters 5, then next it asks the user to enter 5 students' marks. So we shall assume the user enters the marks as 45, 35, 38, 31, and 49. And so each time the user is entering the marks, sum is being calculated as it is inside the loop. Now, once the control comes out of the loop, average is calculated and the printf statement outputs the statement as average is equal to 39.6. So now we have come to the end of this video session. Now let us try to answer few of the questions. Which among the following is the correct method of declaring an array? Options are int mark of 20, int mark, mark of 20, array mark of 20. And the right answer is int mark of 20. Array is group of elements of the same data type, contains more than one element. Array elements are stored sequentially or in continuous memory locations. And the fourth option is all the above. Now the right answer is option D, all the above. The third question, an array index will start from, and the options are -1, 0, 1, either B or C. And the correct answer is option B, 0. The fourth question, can the index value in the subscript of an array be a floating point value? The options are yes or no. And the right answer is option B, no. The last question, dash looping statement is used to read or print or access the elements of an array. And the options are while loop, do while loop, for loop, all the above. And the right answer is option C, which is for loop. So thank you for listening.